up to 10-year maximum penalty. So that is a very serious criminal allegation that now could face Hank. Johnny is out of money, Ramsey is out of money, and relies on Hank pretty much solely for funding and for housing and everything else. He's even gone so far as to, it appears, provide funds for his legal defense. For the most part, most of the crimes fall squarely on Johnny, not on Hank. Hank might have been there, he might have been helping with logistics.
Hanku is finally on the verge of facing some real consequences. Yes, you heard that right. Hanku is now staring down the fallout from everything he's done with Johnny Somali. And this time, it's not just internet drama. We're talking about possible prison time.
Up to 10-year maximum penalty. So that is a very serious criminal allegation that now could face Hank.
Think about it. The next headline you read could be, Hanku on trial, facing criminal charges alongside Johnny Somali. And honestly, it wouldn't even be surprising at this point, because South Korean authorities are now openly discussing Hanku's alleged crimes, and multiple reports suggest he's being looked at for investigation. So in today's video, let's break down exactly how Hanku got himself here, what charges he might be facing, and why prison may actually be his next stop. And stick around, because later I'll tell you about the shocking way Hanku tried to insert himself into the Vitali situation, while humiliating an entire country in the process.
Philippines is kind of a joke. Like, don't fuck around there, yeah, sure, but that entire country.
Let's get into it. Now, if you've been keeping up, you already know Johnny Somali isn't just facing one or two legal problems. He's currently hit with 8 separate criminal charges, with even more investigations circling him. Some of those charges have already been reopened, which means prosecutors could push for additional trials. In other words, Johnny Somali's legal nightmare is far from over.
A separate trial for Ramsey's CWA if the prosecutors decide to indict him. It's going to be a separate trial.
But here's the twist. It's not just Johnny Somali in the hot seat anymore. Legal experts believe Hanku could also be dragged into this mess, because he wasn't just a bystander. According to multiple reports, Hanku actively enabled Johnny Somali, giving him money, providing him housing, even helping him maintain his streaming career when he had no resources left. As Legal Mindset explained, Johnny Somali was basically living off Hanku.
Hank Yu, Han Jung Yu. He has pretty much enabled Johnny Somali to not only continue living a relatively comfortable, if sparse lifestyle, but also enabled him to continue streaming when he wants to by providing him things like a phone, a streaming setup, an apartment to live in, giving him a stipend, buying soju for him, pretty much being his sole source of revenue. Johnny is out of money, Ramsey is out of money, and relies on Hank pretty much solely for funding and for housing and everything else. He's even gone so far as to, it appears, provide funds for his legal defense.
That doesn't sound like casual friendship. It sounds like financial support for criminal activity. And when you're seen as the person helping a criminal continue their lifestyle, authorities are going to start asking questions. And they have.
One thing that is now under investigation is the conversations that Johnny and Hank were having with minors over the last couple of months. They can be investigated for and they can be pushed for. And mind you, carries a up to 10-year maximum penalty. So that is a very serious criminal allegation that now could face Hank.
That's not clickbait. That's the actual sentencing guideline. So what happens if Hank gets charged? Well, remember how he used to brag about fleeing to China if Johnny went to jail?
Well, if Johnny Somali goes to prison, right, it's not going to be like years and years upon years. It's going to be like a few months. I'll be like, all right, that part of my part is done. I'm moving to China.
Yeah, that plan is out the window now. If Hanku gets indicted, he won't be flying anywhere. He'll be locked in a South Korean prison cell right alongside Johnny Somali. But there's more. Reports also suggest Hanku pressured Johnny Somali's lawyer, allegedly involving his own family in that pressure campaign.
He was pressured by Hank's family to be a part of this case.
Why? Because Hanku knew that if Johnny Somali pleaded guilty, his own name would come up in court documents. So the idea was simple. Keep Johnny fighting the charges at all costs, even if it meant crossing ethical lines. And that's not the only time Hanku has shown open disrespect for legal systems. Remember when he flat out mocked South Korean courts, calling their actions unfair and illegal?
So it's like unfair, malicious prosecution, because the two people.
Yeah, if judges see that kind of attitude in court, you can bet they're not going to be merciful. They'll throw the harshest sentence possible at him, just to make an example out of his arrogance. But here's where it gets tricky. Despite everything, there's still a chance Hanku escapes most of the consequences. Why? Because technically, the strongest evidence points directly at Johnny Somali, not Hanku. Legal experts admit that while Hanku helped with logistics, proving he actually committed crimes, or acted as an accomplice, is much harder. And Hanku knows this. That's why he's been playing this long-term mind game. From the very beginning, he pushed Johnny Somali deeper into risky behavior, knowing the spotlight would stay on Johnny while he lurked in the shadows.
And up until this point, when people have asked me about Hank and what Hank could be facing, yes, there's some things it's possible Hank could be hooked in on, but for the most part, most of the crimes fall squarely on Johnny, not on Hank. Hank might have been there, he might have been helping with logistics, but it's really hard to prove some crimes were committed by Hank, or Hank would have some sort of accomplice liability for certain crimes, especially the ones that were from before Hank got deeply involved with Johnny Somali.
For a while, it worked. Johnny took all the charges, and Hank's name stayed relatively clean. But once new evidence surfaced showing Hank physically present during some of these incidents, authorities realized they couldn't ignore him anymore. And it doesn't stop there. Hanku has been reckless outside of the Johnny Somali case too. Take his comments about the Philippines. When asked about Vitali's situation in the country, instead of giving a straight answer, Hanku openly mocked the Philippines, calling the entire country a joke and disrespecting its soldiers and culture. Now, maybe he thought he was being edgy or funny, but that kind of statement doesn't just disappear. South Korean authorities take note when one of their citizens openly disrespects another nation, especially when it creates sympathy for a criminal at the same time. That alone could motivate prosecutors to push harder against him. Because here's the bottom line: when you mock entire countries, disrespect your own legal system, and openly support a known criminal, eventually it catches up to you. And for Hanku, that time might finally be now.
Philippines is kind of a joke, honestly. Like, don't fuck around there, yeah, sure, but that entire country's kind of a joke. I'm sorry, I have no respect for Philippines.
Okay.
Like, almost none, but like, you know, that country is like a joke, man. Like, that country is... Bro, Philippines tries to go against China and contest South China Sea, not remembering during the Korean War when PLA was under-equipped and they were fully equipped with American equipment, they got their asses beat by the PLA completely. And
You mean the Filipino soldiers fighting in the Korean War?
yeah,
Yeah, I
they
see.
still lie.
So let's wrap this up. Hanku is currently under police investigation. The charges he's facing, if proven, carry up to a 10-year sentence. His past actions show a clear pattern of enabling Johnny Somali, disrespecting authorities, and humiliating entire countries for clout. And while there's still a possibility he escapes by dumping all the blame on Johnny Somali, the evidence piling up against him makes that outcome less likely every day. At this point, it comes down to what prosecutors decide and whether South Korean authorities want to make an example out of him. If they do, Hanku could very well spend the next decade behind bars. So what do you think? Should Hanku take full responsibility for enabling Johnny Somali? Or do you believe he'll manage to shift all the blame and walk away free? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this case is far from over.